Oklahoma versus Texas, Ohio State at Illinois, Alabama at Missouri, Indiana at Oregon, South Carolina at LSU. If you're looking for free winning picks on any of those big Week 7 college football matchups, well, then you have come to the right place. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Blitz. We are live here on the Wage Talk YouTube channel, as is the case every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And not only do we have free picks on all the games I just mentioned, but if you're watching us live, there's a benefit. You can go ahead and ask us about any other game you'd like our opinion on. We will answer those questions. You can start firing them off right now down below. Joining me this week, Ralph Michaels and Steve Merril. Ralph, I'm going to go to you first as we open this week's discussion with Red River, Oklahoma and Texas, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. A very interesting line here, I thought. Odds makers have installed this now unranked and completely desperate Texas team as a slight favorite over the 6th-ranked Sooners. There are important questions, I think, that need to be addressed here, namely at the quarterback position for both teams. For Oklahoma, we're all trying to figure out, is John Mateer going to return from injury? And for Texas, is Arch Manning just not any good? Give me your thoughts on this one.
Obviously, I think the line is baked in that they're not expecting Mateer now, with Texas being the favorite. If, with what you read a couple hours ago, I looked, and basically he's day-to-day. When he had his hand surgery on a broken bone on his throwing hand 3 weeks ago, no one thought he would even be here for this game. So it's pretty remarkable that he's actually practiced some. But I like Oklahoma, but I cannot back them with a true freshman if Mateer doesn't go. So this may be a game that if he practices today and we get a positive report and then, he is ready to go Saturday morning, I may get on with this game. As far as you look at Arch Manning, you look at his stats, they're not horrible. 11.5 rate touchdown interception ratio, 8.5 YPA, 60% completions. But you look at his games at Florida and at Ohio State. That's where he really struggled. He was a combined 34 of 62 in those games. What shocked the hell out of me last week was Texas's defense. Was I shocked that they lost at Florida? No. Was I shocked that they lost to Florida and allowed 457 yards, got outgained by 116 yards, got out first down 22-16? 100% I was shocked. The Oklahoma defense has done what it's asked. You look at a defense that is allowing 193 yards per game. They have held 4 of their 5 opponents to a season low. It is interesting to note the first 3 games with Mateer healthy, their offense also had a season high against their opponents. So to me, statistically, Oklahoma with a massive advantage. Looking at my stat compare sheet, we're looking at a Texas team that's the number 77 toughest schedule. Oklahoma's 87. So basically even. With those even schedules, Oklahoma is number 7 in yards per game diff and number 14 in yards per play diff. Texas quite a bit behind, 22 and 25. And this Oklahoma defense just doesn't give up big plays. They're number 2 in explosive plays allowed, those of 10 or more. Oklahoma, for me, doesn't make my card unless I know Mateer's healthy. If he is healthy, though, I'm going to guess this goes to Oklahoma -3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it'll be, and then Steve, it would be interesting because, I'm one who always likes to, play with fire, go against the current, swim upstream, if you will. I almost wonder if it would be, if Mateer does play, if there's an overreaction then, and, like Ralph says, the way the line's moving, and maybe there would be some value on Texas. But my question is, Ralph brought up a lot of great points about the respective defenses here. They're both very good. And Oklahoma is a perfect 5-0 to the under this year. I'm surprised looking at the odds screen, this total's moved up a point. I know that's not a big deal, but, it opened 42.5. Obviously, that's very low. But, with those quarterback uncertainties we're talking about and the defensive, how strong the defenses are, like Ralph pointed out, I don't know. It's obviously going to be a low-scoring game, and that's baked into the number. But what do you think about that total being moved being bet up a point?
Well, we talked about the Texas-Florida game last week on the show, and that total was right around this range also, 42, 43. It stayed above that key number of 41. It landed 50, and as Ralph said, what surprised me wasn't necessarily that Florida went out, right? We all talked about them being the ugly dog that no one can touch, and they kind of had that step-up game. I do think Texas overlooked them, by the way. And with the look-ahead game here with Oklahoma on deck, maybe that was the case. But the defense gave up over 400 yards. So that's the kind of the quandary I'm in here. As a Florida team that couldn't move the ball this season all of a sudden breaks out. But Oklahoma is up against it if they don't have their starting quarterback. Here's what's crazy. Arch Manning's had a very mediocre season. You look at his quarterback rating, it's 151. Mateer on the season is 149.5. He has a higher quarterback rating than either of the Oklahoma quarterbacks, which is insane. It just shows how inaccurate that can be. But what I do dig deeper, and Ralph kind of touched on this, is Arch Manning against better teams hasn't really performed. Last week against the Gators, 2 interceptions. Against Ohio State, 1 interception, a 3-3 ratio in those 2 games. And then the one that jumps out to me was the UTEP game. His worst rating of the season was against UTEP in week 3, the 3rd game. He's been very inconsistent. I would lean under for that reason. Would like more certainty of the quarterback situation. Mateer and Hawkins both have nice numbers as far as touchdown interceptions ratings, but what really jumps out to me is that Mateer's averaging 8.5 yards per pass. Hawkins Jr., the backup, who's thrown 27 passes. Not many. He's only averaging 6.2. Let's wait and see if we get more clarity on the quarterback situation. I like the under if the backup is still in there, and I do think the Texas defense will play better this week if that's the case.
Okay, Ralph, you had something to share.
Support your under. Texas was sacked 6 times last week against Florida. And oh yeah, by the way, Oklahoma has 19 sacks the last 3 weeks. Yes, 2 of the games were Temple and Kent State. But remember, this same defense had 10 sacks against Auburn. So if you want to see Arch Manning quake a little bit, wait till this D-line tees off on him.
Yeah, and I'm that Auburn game against Oklahoma. Auburn just could not get anything going. They could not run the ball whatsoever. Guys, I mentioned to get those questions in about any game you want to hear about. And the beauty, if you're watching live, not only do you get any game, not only can you ask about any game you want, but specifically you can ask about these weekday games, obviously, before, because there's, with Conference USA now has a bunch of games during the week. And there's some big games in the American as well. And Adam, one of our loyal listeners, he's asked about a few games here. Louisiana Tech tonight. Louisiana Tech, a team that is perfect 5-0 against the spread. Adam notes there's still some 5.5, 6s out there. The money has come in on Kennesaw State, the home dog in this game. Adam, I'll be honest, I was looking at the whole, I really wanted to bet Kennesaw this week, and this is why. Louisiana Tech, their last 2 wins have been completely fraudulent. They were outgained in both of them, and that's by Southern Miss and UTEP. Anyone who watched UTEP's offense last night knows if you're getting outgained by UTEP, that's not great. So I thought I was going to be fading Louisiana Tech in this spot. However, I can't. This number does seem too low. I'll be honest with you. On Kennesaw, I would need over 7 to bet them. So I pass. I don't know if you guys have any take on this game. The numbers kind of gotten away from it for me.
I'll say real quick, my 10,000 game simulation has Louisiana Tech by 13.5, but I still didn't use it, Brian, for the exact same reasons you just said. So I'm on board with you. I wanted to fade them, but it's about a touchdown too low, so it was a pass for me for that reason. 2 really bad offensive teams. I rate both defenses substantially better than the offenses, so I guess if you're looking at the total, under 46.5 would make some sense. It opened 45.5. 47, 48 are key numbers. So if we can get to 47 or more for some reason, I would start leaning under.
Another game here. We've got this is a very, very big game in terms of college playoff implications. Yes, in terms of college football playoff implications. I said it. South Florida against North Texas. North Texas is a team, and I was not alone on this. I bet them against Washington State a few weeks ago, and I joked afterwards that I unfortunately might have had my easiest winner of the college football season in September. I was watching that game. I said, why can't they all be like this, guys? They just kept intercepting Washington State. They win 59-10 North Texas. North Texas still unbeaten. I know they've got 2 overtime wins on the road against less than stellar competition, but this game is in Denton. South Florida's first ever trip out to Denton, Texas. South Florida obviously is a team that got a lot of attention with the upsets of Boise and Florida earlier in the year. Line has been bouncing back and forth. North Texas opened as a favorite. South Florida was favored. Now North Texas is favored again. I'll be honest, I like the mean green. I don't know if any of you have any take on that one. Ralph.
I look at the stat profiles on these teams. USF has played the number 39 schedule. North Texas has played the 115 schedule. So they are 76 better on the strength of schedule are the Bulls. When you look at yards per play diff on the season, taking the yards per play on offense, subtracting the defense, USF is number 40 at plus 1.36 yards per play. North Texas is only 26, only 14 spots better, despite being over 70 spots worse as far as the stats go. And when I look at their year-to-date numbers, comparing what those teams do against the averages of their other opponents, on offense, North Texas is 26. On offense, USF is 24. On defense, North Texas is 105. USF is 83. I do like USF. There's a chance they end up on my card.
Okay. Wow. There we go. Difference of opinion there. I don't know, Steve, if you wanted to break the tie or if you just wanted to let Ralph and I just brawl.
I will. I'll use the total. I actually did a 3-game video, which just went up this morning for all 3 of the Friday games tomorrow. There are actually 3 really good national TV games tomorrow night. And South Florida is ranked 24th right now. North Texas is one of those unranked favorites. They're currently -1. Pick 'em. It's anywhere from pick 'em to -1.5, but we'll call them as a slight unranked favorite. And by the way, they are getting additional votes. So if they win this game, they will probably be top 25 next week. But I like the over 66.5 in this game. North Texas had 500-plus yards in half their games last year. They routinely had games that got into the 70s. In fact, the last 2 seasons with the current head coach, this team their games totaled 68 points and 72 points the first 2 seasons under Eric Morris. South Florida's also played some high-scoring games in recent years. No pun intended, Brian. Let's not overthink this one. I think it'll be a shootout on Friday night.
Yeah, and Adam noted that the over-under here is higher than the Prez. Now stop it.
By the way,
Prez is working hard. It's Thursday. I guarantee you that right there.
Yeah, Prez is coming down. He gets back up for the weekends. But Ralph talks about this all the time, as do I. Like, we always play the highest totals over. This is the second highest total of the week. The UAB game on Saturday, I think, is a 69, dude. So that's like the only one that's higher. So it's a big number for a reason.
Sexy devil.
All right, let's just explain that. You know, Vegas puts out a total where they're going to get equal money on both sides. There's people that just don't play totals in the 70s. So when you have a total that are in the high 60s, it likely should be in the 70s,
Correct.
But they don't need to put it in the 70s because they're getting equal money. Same thing on low totals. I did a video on Iowa and Wisconsin. It's 36. Some guys will never bet under low totals. But I said to my video, oh my God, is this that Iowa team of 2013 that averaged 15 points per game? And there was a total of 29 that year. So you think 36 is low. Let's think back 2 years about Iowa.
Yeah, I was a textbook example. I think it was, 2 years ago? They were like 10-2 to the under, and we were getting totals low 30s, high 20s. They were still going under. And, Ralph, one of the best charts you've ever sent me was for a baseball video a couple years ago. I asked you to pull up the numbers under 6.5 or less. This is about 2 seasons ago. And Ralph pointed out that on the blind, 8 of the previous 9 years, if you played all under 6.5s or lower, you made money in Major League Baseball. So that's how powerful it can be at times to take a contrarian view with low and high totals.
Thank you, Corey, by the way, for those kind words. This is a great show. I do say I would agree with that. So, all right. One thing, too, about the total and the South Florida, North Texas. I don't know if you guys caught the end of South Florida's game last week against Charlotte. I could not believe that they were running up-tempo, hurry up to something tells me they knew the spread because they got that late touchdown to get the cash there late at the game. That was crazy. That was I was laughing. I mean, they were hiking the ball. There were still 30 seconds left on the play clock. They were hiking. It was unbelievable.
That's really something to pay attention to. I mean, we've all been around for a while. Remember in the 90s, Bill Snyder with Kansas State, when I was starting back in the mid to late 90s, he would put guys back in to score a late touchdown, and they would cover the 40-point spread, the 30-point spread. So it's something to keep an eye on. He's a third-year coach as well.
Yes. And so we've got a lot of questions coming. Let's go back to our rundown, guys. We've got a lot of questions, multiple questions. Jacob Hefner is here. He's got his eye on a couple home dogs. One of them is Missouri. Sean Burley, he is asking about Missouri and Bama as well. Quote, why does it seem everyone has written this game off as a W for Bama? I don't get the opening line at all. So let's talk Alabama, Missouri. Noon Eastern time. I talked about this game on the midweek edition of the Power 5. I think we would all agree it's not a great spot for the Crimson Tide. They, obviously got the backdoor cover last week against Vanderbilt. Talking about teams punching it in late. And Missouri's coming off a bye. But I asked the question, Steve Merril. Who exactly has Missouri played? It's a real rogues gallery of opponents so far. The toughest team they beat was Kansas. They were losing in that game. Now, it was a deserved win when you open the box score. But Missouri is typically, I look at this spot, Missouri's a team, if you follow me, Missouri's a team that I would usually bet on in this spot. I'm not. You talked about power ratings, Steve. I'll tell you, my power ratings disagree with this line move. I have Alabama rated number 2 in the country. Missouri barely cracks my top 25.
Yeah, Brian, you and I have won consistently in college football for decades. I think we do things a lot the same way, and I'm with you on this one. I did a standalone video for this last night. Of course, it's going to be a part of my college football top 25 video, which I'm doing later today for this weekend. And I'm conflicted on this game. My 10,000 game simulation has Alabama by 5. So I do think the line's a little cheap now that it's down to that key number of 3. But I agree the situation looks better for Missouri here. You pointed out some of the reasons. First of all, they're coming off the bye week, a live home dog off a bye week. And Bama letdown spot after Vanderbilt. Well, it's possible. I mean, they had the big win at Georgia, and then they had the huge revenge game last week against Vandy. This is not a great spot. And, oh, by the way, they've got Tennessee on deck next week. I just don't know for sure, though, either if Missouri is for real. If you look at what they've done, even when factoring in their weaker schedule, it's been pretty impressive this year statistically. They're holding teams to 14.5 points, 3.9 yards per play. Those teams have averaged 5.5 overall. Bama's averaging about 6.7, though, and a huge step up in pass class. Missouri's faced teams that average about 7.2. Bama's throwing for 9.2. Interesting thing about Alabama is they're getting almost 75% of their total yards through the air this year. They're a pass-based offense. Missouri's been extremely strong against the run and the pass, but they've faced a much weaker schedule. You know what I used in the video? I actually used the total here, and I'm not in love with this, but I used under 51.5, 52. 51's a very key number. Both defenses have been strong. Both offenses not quite as strong as the opposing defenses. I'd probably lean under, but this is a tough call for me for some of the reasons you mentioned as well.
Yeah, Ralph, so we kind of have some conflict here between situation and power ratings. Do the trends say anything on this game for you?
Brian, let me say 2 things. I have Alabama as my number 2 power rated team, and I make Alabama a 6-point favorite. I think the noon start helps Alabama. These kids like to get fired up and drunk, and these night games are much tougher in the SEC than they are day games. We'll talk about that with LSU coming up in a little bit as well. So I think that favors Bama. The scheduling spot, as you said, off at UMass and off a bye. That means Missouri had 3 weeks to work on this game. Alabama has had 6 days. They could not look past Georgia. They could not look past Vanderbilt. The prep time is amazing. But let me quantify for you guys. Missouri is the number 1 best statistical team in the country. They are plus 343 yards per game. That's not their offense. That's what their offense averages more than their defense allows, 343 yards. But everyone hold up if they know how many FBS teams there are this year. 136. Missouri's strength of schedule is number 150. Alabama is number 4. Why 150? I do like using Sagarin for the strength of schedules because it shows you that how many FCS teams have actually played a tougher schedule than Missouri. Because if you're last, you might be 200 last if you just use the FBS number. So I do want to reach out and say that. But while it's very impressive that Missouri is number 1 in yards per game diff, it's much more impressive that Alabama is number 18 in yards per game diff with the number 4 schedule. So to me, Alabama is actually, comparing the strength of schedule, the number 1 most dominant statistical team in college football, even with the Buckeyes having their number 1 defense. But there are 2 reasons why I am not playing this game, Brian, and you asked about the trends. Let me share them with you. When you have a conference home dog off a home game with at least 4 straight wins. So a conference dog, they have been playing well. Those teams are 27-6, 81% against the spread. And from game 4 on, if you have a favorite that has allowed 6.5 yards per carry or more, 18 wins and 60 losses, that is a 77% fade. And you might be thinking, what the hell am I talking about? There's no way Bama gave that up. Well, guess what? Against Georgia, they allowed 227 and 6.9 rushing. Against Vanderbilt, they allowed 7.1 yards rushing. And let's remember, against Florida State, they allowed 230 yards rushing. Oh, yeah, by the way, Missouri has the country's leading rusher in Ahmad Hardy, 730 yards per game, 7.1 yards per carry. Situation says Missouri. My power ratings say Alabama. Statistical profile up in the air because we're not sure. I lean Missouri, but cannot bet them until they prove they can handle this type of competition.
Yeah, Ralph, just a simple trend that kept me off the Bama side was this. As a road favorite, the last 20 times they've been a road favorite, they're only 7-13 against the number, and they fail. Obviously, those are some big numbers. They failed to cover by quite a bit. I think they're 2-5 ATS the last 7 times.
But if we look at how many are 3 or less, Brian, it changes the whole dynamic. We're
exactly,
that's
true.
30 points at Vanderbilt. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is a bit of a different, obviously a pretty cheap line there. So hopefully that helped you out, guys. I know that there is some conflict there. I think the three of us though are in agreement that this line, from a power ratings perspective, is a little short. Let's go back to the chat.
But you know what, Brian? Let me mention one more thing. That's what makes this show so good. We don't always try to give you best bets. We just break down the game in our opinions. It's you that has to make the determination, taking all that information to either play the game or pass. I know a lot of shows say, I agree, and you think, oh my God, it's a great play because all three agree. I mean, these are games that may not be on any of our cards. So if we don't have anything strong, we don't bullshit you and say, oh my God, this is a best bet. It's for you to determine. And again, that's what makes the Blitz the best college football show there is.
Absolutely. And we will all have best bets coming up, of course, at the end of the program here today. So stay tuned for that. I do want to return to the chat before we get our rundown. There is a game I really want to talk about. And let me tell you something, okay? You could put Dan Mullen's face right next to Bernie Madoff on the fraud list, because this UNLV team, what they continue to get away with week in, week out, and yeah, I'm a little salty because I had Wyoming last week, okay? I saw the snow falling, Steve and Laramie. It was our first snow game of the year. I said, oh my God, these kids from that school in Las Vegas aren't going to be able to deal with that snow. Well, guess what? Wyoming had not just one, but 2 punts blocked and returned for a touchdown. I would like to ask you two, you guys have seen a little bit maybe more football than I have through the years. Name the last time you've seen a team have 2 punt blocks returned for touchdown in the same game. I couldn't remember one. I'm sure it's happened, but I couldn't remember it. It was absurd.
And not when it's a single-digit point spread. It was like around 4.5. I mean, maybe if it's a 40-point spread, you just see everything happen. You see annihilation. 2 really bad defensive teams. That's the first thing that jumps out to me in this game. UNLV, by the way, playing Air Force for those that are joining us. And, of course, when you play Air Force, it's about stopping the run. And that's really all you have to do against the triple option. And we'll look at UNLV's stats on the season. They've been terrible against the run. They've actually been good against the pass. 6.6 against teams that average 6.8 against the run. 5.2 against teams that average just 4.5. And Air Force, as all these military academies do, they basically run for a ton of yards. Although, with that said, Air Force does throw the ball a little bit more than in years past and more than Army and Navy's throwing. Air Force runs about 49 times a game. They throw about 17. 246 rushing, 221 passing. I can't ever remember a service academy that's been that balanced as far as yardage. So I think if UNLV struggles to stop the run, which they will, could open up some big plays passing-wise. And by the way, Air Force, 5-0 to the over this season. And part of that reason is because they do have a little bit more of a passing attack. I would like the up and over in this one. Check the odds logic screen. The total is currently around 64.5, 65, one of the bigger totals on the board. And UNLV a 7-point favorite. I would lean Air Force +7.
Yeah, I want to take the points, obviously, very bad, because, look, it's not just UNLV with the block punts last week in Laramie. They were outgained by Idaho State, an FCS team. The Miami game, they were losing in the fourth quarter. Then literally every single player in Miami started getting hurt. It was unbelievable. I didn't think they were going to finish with 22 guys in that game. And UNLV still barely won. I really want to get to the window with the Air Force, but Steve brought up some good points. And the reason why I'm probably not going to get to the window with Air Force this week, I'm thinking about it, I'll be honest with you, is the defense. It's awful. They can't stop a nosebleed. I mean, so UNLV is going to put up points. Yeah, this does, Ralph, we just talked about it with that South Florida, North Texas game, betting to, high totals to go over. This is another high total.
about service academies, but Steve talked how these are not your father's service academies. Against Navy, they threw 20 times, they ran the ball 40 times, 40 times. So I am to the window with Air Force. I do not trust UNLV. You look at Air Force's rush, yes, they're passing more, but they're still averaging 5.0 yards per carry. When I look at UNLV, this is a team on defense that they haven't given up massive rush yards, but they're giving up massive yards overall, and they're allowing 5.2 yards per carry. They've had no sacks the last 2 games. You have a pass rush that statistically are good, but you look at the offenses of Idaho State, Sam Houston, Miami of Ohio, and Wyoming, and they're horrible. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, guys. Remember, teams playing in the altitude of Wyoming, it's over 7,000 feet. They're only a 23% ATS play the next week if they don't have a bye week. So coming off a road trip to Miami, back to Wyoming, now having the pressure of Air Force as a home favorite. Oh yeah, by the way, you may have the Mountain West title game on deck with Boise State, where you have to travel to Boise next week. I do like Air Force.
All right, we've got some people. Hold on one second. That was the wrong one. UNLV. Some people think that I guess they are the Mountain West's only chance at a playoff spot. I don't think they get there though. I think UNLV is going to slip up. I think the American gets the playoff spot. All right, we're kind of at the middle of the show here, guys, and guess what? We have an incredible special offer to tell you about here for the weekend. Good for all of us. And Ross Benjamin as well. Ross, get well soon. We think Ross could be returning to the program next week. We, of course, thank Steve for sitting in here with Ralph and I. But there is a coupon that we are going to talk to you about right now. The coupon code is 25BLITZ. That is 25BLITZ. And that coupon code, what does it do? It'll get you 25% off our college football season, any one of our college football season packages, any one of our NFL season packages, or the college football NFL combo season package. This deal is good through Sunday night. You can save over $120 on any of our college football season packages. Get that for $381. That's 14 full weeks of college football for only $27 per week. With the combo package, you could save over $180, just under $33 per week for every football play, college and the NFL. Steve, what do you got going on this weekend? It's a busy weekend, obviously, not just college football, not just NFL, but the Major League Baseball playoffs as well.
Yeah, it's a great special code if you want football. There's also some great all sports packages. We got the baseball playoffs going. We're 75% this postseason. NBA starts in less than 2 weeks. In less than 2 weeks, the NBA season starts. College basketball right after that. So if you want a football special, use that 25 Blitz. If you want an all-sport, all-access, there's no promo code needed. We have a 7-day sampler right now for $77. Also a buy 3 months, get the 4th month for free. Or the best deal right now, the rest of 2025, the next 2.5 months for free when you buy 2026. All those details on my page, along with daily free plays, including an advanced NFL play for this Sunday right now on my page, SteveMerrillWagerTalk.com, and get there quicker with that cute shortcut you see on the screen there, WT.buzz/SM. Look at that's not Arial or Times Newman. That's sassy. That's a sassy font.
Incredible production team here on the Blitz. We spared
Dan Alexander getting sassy with the fonts.
I mean, this guy's unbelievable, the things he can do. Ralph, talk to me what you've got going on this weekend.
A great promo, Brian. You were very professional explaining that. Thank you. I want to say first, I had a crappy college football week, guys. It's going to happen. I lost a 5% on Friday. I went 1-3 on Saturday. But I remind people of the old Patriots days with Belichick and Brady. When you have a quality service coming off a loss, you usually want to jump on them the next week. It's always, Steve says don't catch a falling knife. But again, if it's only one losing week, I feel that is a great time to jump on. College football, still 27-14, 66%, including last week. NFL and college football plays 4% and 5%, 37-16, 70%. I will have an NFL 5%. Those are 6-1, 86%. And NFL teasers rated 4% and 5%, 16-3, 84%. 25 Blitz, save that. Or remember, if you just want to try us out for the weekend warrior is still in effect. My 5% on Sunday, $35. The weekend warrior, just $14 more for all of Saturday college football and all of Sunday NFL, plus any bonus Monday night NFL plays.
Yeah. And I will note that my college football card, currently 5 plays for Saturday, is posted at wt.buzz/BP. Over the last week, guys, we have cashed not one, but 2 5% plays. Told you last week, it was my biggest college football play of the season. On Saturday, we cashed it with Cincinnati money line against Iowa State, of course, because Scott Satterfield. I was so kind to you, Dan, and that's the thanks I get. Unbelievable.
It's even sassier
anyway,
now. Even
yeah,
sassier.
well, you know what? Dan? I'm going to bring up the fact that I had Cincinnati over Iowa State again now. But, look, because it was Scott Satterfield coaching Cincinnati, of course it couldn't be easy. They're up 31-7. Thank you very much. They're up 31-7 in the first half, and I have to hold on for dear life. And speaking of holding on for dear life, last night, thank you for everyone who joined me for Cub. I know this is a college football program. We did have a 5% on the Cubs in the Major League Baseball playoffs. And to say that I was watching the last 6 innings of that game with my head down would be putting it mildly. I made peace with the fact very early, Ralph and Steve, the Cubs were not going to score again after the first inning. And thankfully, 4 runs was enough. I said Quinn Priester would stink, and he stunk. But guess what? They took him out after 2 outs, so we didn't get any more of them. But still, 2 5% wins the last week. WT.buzz/BP. And Jeffrey, Jay Buff, I hope you're not referring to my shirt here. That's one of my better shirts, quite frankly. Jay Buff, I'm going to push your question to the back of the line right now in the chat room after that.
No soup for you.
Yeah, no soup for you.
Steve,
Sexy devil.
You would expect Bryan. He's got. I'm going to bet his best bet is the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to come out with an axe over his shoulder.
I did, Ralph. I was thinking that before the show started. I was being nice. I didn't make the Brawny Towels reference or the lumberjack references, but it did cross my mind. I was trying not to pick on Bryan, but so hard not to.
The door's been open.
60-minute show.
I think you guys know well enough. Never thrown an axe around. Actually, that's a lie. I actually did go axe throwing.
I did axe throwing once also. It's harder than it looks. It's harder to make it stick than it looks.
I was in Detroit with
especially when you've been drinking. I cannot believe that that's allowed. I can't believe that. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm clearly been drinking for an hour. You're gonna let me throw this axe? What are you people doing?
First thing that crossed my mind was the insurance policy has to be pricey for this establishment when I was in there.
I went to Detroit and went out with a Wager Talk crew last year to axe throwing. Yes, I was drinking, and I think I had one axe stick. I mean,
it's hard.
Tougher than you think, my ass. It is difficult. So those people that you watch on those shows that go like this and hit it every time, there's some skill involved there.
Yes. All right. Enough about axe throwing. Enough about the Chicago Cubs. Enough about my shirt, quite frankly. Let's get back to the chat. Oh, Steve. All right, Colorado or Iowa? I believe that's Iowa State. He's asked because Colorado is hosting Iowa State. Coach Prime. I just mentioned that he will, I believe, is planning on returning to the sidelines. I talked about my 5% was fading Iowa State last week. I had been pretty critical of the Cyclones on this program the last couple weeks. There you go. I'll tell you what, that guy probably can bench more than I can, I'll be honest with you.
The Blitz, sponsored by Brawny Towels, super absorbent.
By Brawny Towels,
just like Bryan Power, super absorbent.
Unbelievable. I am absorbent. Thank you, Steve.
You are. You absorb knowledge.
Yes. It would be Colorado or pass for me in this game. I continue to believe Iowa State is woefully overrated. Again, they were down 31-7 in the first half to Cincinnati. Granted, Colorado does not have anywhere near the offensive capabilities of the Bearcats. But still, in Boulder, it would be Colorado or pass for me on this game.
I really don't have much except this. I mean, it's much different than last year. Because if you were looking last year, having to play at Cincinnati, a very physical team, and then going to the up-tempo Buffaloes in altitude, it would be one of the worst scheduling spots. But with no offense this year, and Slater and Stahl both playing poorly, they are like one of the slowest paced teams. I mean, rarely do you see a team be a top 10 team in pace. You have the same coach, and the next year you're a bottom 20 team in pace. So I just point out that that system that I used to look to fade teams playing a second straight road game in Colorado. That not the situation this year.
All right, Jay Buff, you've waited long enough despite you insulting my shirt there. You did have some question asking about 3 games here.
That's getting greedy, isn't it?
It is. Hey, get them all in at once. If you want, get them all in at once. See what happens. You know what? We can all take our pick, though. That's great. He likes ECU, Purdue, and USC. Any opinions on any of these? ECU, that is tonight. I'll grab that one. I think they're. I think.
What's the other game, Brian?
Purdue and USC.
I'm going to use a free play in USC, Ralph. So I'll throw that one to you, and I can do Purdue if you want.
Let's just wait. I'll do Purdue, and you just hold off because it's the best bet at the end.
I like that.
All right.
Okay. I'll tell you that I think USC is getting too many points against Tulane. I make that. I think that's a pretty close game. The American, a very interesting league. There's a clear top 6 and a clear bottom 8. ECU and Tulane are both in the top 6. I think it's too many points for the Pirates tonight. I know they've played a weaker schedule than Tulane. Tulane's a hard place to win at, but still, I would take the 6.5.
Yeah, Brian, I will say I made a Tulane 5 in my simulation, so it's 6.5. Maybe wait to get that key number of 7. And by the way, real quick, Ralph sent over to some of us privately today the NFL chart margins of victory. Very interesting to me that over the last 3 years, there's been just as many 6-point margin wins as 7-point wins in the NFL. Exactly the same the last 4 years. So,
and you know why that is, Steve? All the new analytics with the young coaches, when they're down 14, they're going for 2 right away. So they're getting it to 8 or 6. And that's changed the dynamics completely over the last few seasons.
Yeah, because it made me think today, Ralph, whenever you see a 6.5 like this, you used to always say, grab it now. You don't want to risk it going to 7, even like Tulane. But nowadays, it's almost like wait and try to get that 6 because it's a double bonus. Whereas if with East Carolina, you don't want to risk it going down to 6 now. But yeah, Ralph, I thought that was very interesting this morning when I was looking at that chart that 6 and 7s are equal now, because when we were growing up, it was always 3 and 7 and then maybe 6 afterwards.
And with the missed extra point, 5 all of a sudden is as relative as 2s,
right.
Since 2015. Well, you know what? We should have had Brian do the Minnesota Golden Gophers with the
there we go.
Oh, there we go. That's where Paul Bunyan's from. Yes.
No wonder you jumped and
wanted
to do ECU. You didn't want us to tell any more jokes on that.
Yes, there we go.
I'll tell you what. I do like Purdue. First off, Minnesota's offense. Minnesota's offense against
35
Ohio
feet
State,
more.
You can't quantify. Okay, yes, they scored 3 points and they gained 161 yards, but it is Ohio State. But again, when they played Rutgers at home, 31 points, 20 first downs. At California, 19 first downs. They have not been able to substantiate any long drives. Now, Purdue's defense has been poor, allowing 500 each of the last 2 weeks. But again, it was against Notre Dame and Illinois. But I have watched enough of the Purdue offense that I do like this team. They're averaging 401 yards per game. They're completing 62%, which isn't great, but when you're talking Purdue, those numbers are like some of those previous Purdues where they had some great wide receivers. The rushing game has improved. It got very good against Illinois, 6.0 yards per carry. Struggled against Notre Dame, but again, that's a different story. I do think Purdue can keep this close and perhaps even pull the outright upset.
Okay, there you have it. That's a good-looking lumberjack, by the way, you saw on the screen. And stay tuned, Jay Buff, for a free pick on USC Michigan. That will be Steve's best bet coming up at the end of the show. Now, guys, normally I would not bring up Kent State versus UMass, but we have had multiple questions on the chat. If I tried putting this in the show rundown, I don't know what would smack me harder, the YouTube algorithm or Kelly Stewart. But, again, we have 2 questions about it. And this is why I like this show, because we get questions on games like Kent State and UMass. These are the bottom 2 ranked teams in my power ratings at FBS. The 2 worst teams in the entire FBS. It's homecoming weekend. We've learned at Kent State. I partied at Kent State University. It's no Ohio University, but it's a fun place. I'm going to tell you what. A guy who looks at the glass as being half empty would tell you who in the hell would lay points with Kent State. But a guy who looks at the glass half full, Steve Merril would say, I only have to lay 2.5 points against UMass. Give me the Golden Flashes in this game. This will, at the very least, this will make the Power Weekend edition of the Power 5. A good friend of mine, also his name is Brian, a Kent State alum. He has Kent State over 1.5 wins this season. I am rooting for you, buddy, because you need this one. Because other than Akron, it's either this or that to get 2 wins on the season. I don't know if either of you guys have
this is a critical game for that 1.5 season win ticket, to say the least. It's also a critical line, 2.5 threes. Mostly 3s out there, but there are some 2.5 still. If you like Kent State, you grab the 2.5. You don't play around with 2.5, 3. That no matter 6s and 7s maybe are more equal now. 3's still king in all college and pro football. If you like UMass, you wait to get 3. There are some available. I favor Kent State by over 5 points in this game with my 7,000 game simulation. My computer refused to run 10,000 simulations on this game. It's so bad. And by the way, what do we have? 136 teams in college football. I rate these two 132 and 134 on offense, 135 and 136 on defense right now with my ratings. So this is about as ugly as it gets. On a most serious note, William and Mary, of course, still FCS. UMass used to be in the conference back in the days. They won a national title 20-some years ago. I'm hearing talk now that they might drop back down to FCS. That's how bad things are getting for the UMass football program. And another team I'd be very careful with this season for that reason.
And we were going to welcome them with open arms into the MAC, Ralph.
Like I said, they're dropping the FC. That's too easy.
This could be the biggest statistical difference in almost every game this season. Massachusetts is minus 208 yards per game. That is number 135. Kent State is minus 245 yards per game. That is 136. So not only are they last, the bottom two in the FBS, but listen to this. Kent State has played the 5th toughest schedule. Massachusetts has played the 79th schedule. Massive edge for me. Those stats being equal with a 74% strength of schedule difference tells you Kent State should probably be a touchdown plus favorite. Oh, yeah, by the way, these teams are also 129 and 131 in plays per game. They're they're almost the two slowest paced teams. So you have to think under as well, because each is just going to try to run the ball, not make mistakes, and eke out a win.
Mr. Ho, if that is your real name. My free play at the end of the show will be on BYU versus Arizona, so stay tuned for that. But we got a rundown we got to get to, guys. We have some. We're going to go from one end of the spectrum, Kent State and UMass, to the other. Let's talk Indiana and Oregon. This is a game that I talked about on the midweek edition of the Power 5. I said Alabama, Missouri. I do not agree with that line move. This line move, guys, I do agree with. I know Indiana struggled to step up in class last year against both Ohio State and Notre Dame, but that was last year. This Cignetti has this team ready, and Oregon, we all thought, what a great win that was, going into Happy Valley and beating Penn State. Well, that win doesn't look any good now, does it, after Penn State fell flat on their face and lost to UCLA. Not saying Indiana's live to win the game. I think it's too many points, guys. I would back the Hoosiers getting 7.5. Steve, let me go to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, this opened 9.5. It's down to 7.5, even 7 now at some other spots. Right in the middle is my simulation. I've got Oregon by 8.5, so it's pretty much spot on. I rate these as 2 top 10 offenses and surprisingly 2 top 10 defenses. And the one thing that did jump out to me in that Penn State game was how slow of a start it was. 3-3 in that game, and then a little bit of offense in the second half. I think Penn State, a little bit of a paper lion, no pun intended. Franklin obviously is. So do we really read too much into that win? By the way, Oregon, I forget if it's the coaches poll or the AP poll. They're getting like one first place vote in one of them. Texas A&M's getting one as well. I don't quite understand that. One thing that's really interesting about the two polls, I think it's either 62 or 66 votes in both polls. Ohio State's getting the majority of the votes, but in one of them, Miami of Florida's getting over 20 first-place votes. They're only getting like 3 in the other one. I thought that was strange as well. It's Ohio State or pass for me right now. The look-ahead line this summer, I believe, was 14 in this game. So it is a little bit of a discount. The one thing that jumps out to me, though, and I did a video this week for the Illinois game, and I talked about how bad Illinois lost to Indiana a couple weeks ago. 7-point home favorite. Indiana wins 63-10, and there was nothing misleading about that. There was only one turnover in the game. Indiana had over 570 total yards of offense. I've often said when you have 2 top 10 offenses, 2 top 10 defenses, I usually feel like the offenses nowadays, everyone always used to say defense beats good offenses back in the 90s and the 2000s. I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. I really kind of start siding towards the good offenses, even when they're playing good defensive units. And this total is very modest at 55. I'd probably sprinkle a little in the over here. I think the side's pretty much where it should be. But wouldn't be surprised to see some offense here. This Indiana offense is explosive. What they did to Illinois was really eye-opening for me a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Ralph, your turn here on Oregon, Indiana, certainly one of the marquee games on Saturday.
Well, again, I like looking at yards per game diff on the season. Indiana 4, Oregon 5. And the strength of schedule isn't huge. Oregon 59, Indiana 72. So pretty close. So 13 spots away. Indiana actually won better in yards per game. I actually do agree. I am not getting to the window in this. And I do have a trend I want to share with you, which does lean Oregon, but my opinion is actually going to be Indiana. When you have two top 10 teams with the line between the nines, the home team is 25, 11, and 4 against the spread. That's 69%. So what, are nines relatives? Well, sevens maybe more closely, but it's telling you you're basically competitively priced. No double-digit favorites. So home teams with two top 10 teams, 69% against the spread, and 63% over-under, Steve, to lean with your under. It's taken me a while to drink the Cignetti Kool-Aid, and yes, I faded him last year, in the playoffs when they went to Notre Dame, and when they went to Ohio State, but just another year removed for what he did in his first season and now with second season. He's building in this culture where I think they can keep this game very close.
Okay, there we go. I would concur with that. Steve, let's stay in the Big Ten here. Number 1, Ohio State taking on Illinois. Steve referenced this game. Very interesting, Steve. I know Ralph obviously follows Ohio State very closely. I'm going to throw it to you, though. First, Mr. Merril, the Buckeyes, number 1 in the country in yards per play margin. We've been talking a lot about yards per play margin here on the show today. Ohio State's defense, number 1 in the country, allowing just 5 points per game. You're going to do well when you're giving up only 5 points per game. And quarterback Julian Sain, well, he's completing over 80% of his passes. That, too, is number 1 in the country. And yet, there's a lot of talk. Is this team as good as we thought? Obviously, Penn State and Texas are not anywhere near as good as we thought. We're wondering, is Alabama going to get up top? Not a lot of people talking about the Buckeyes, the reigning national champions here. They are laying just north of 2 touchdowns against Illinois, an Illinois team that you referenced earlier, got run off the field at Indiana. That was at Indiana, though. This game is in Champaign-Urbana. Do we think maybe Illinois can keep this one close at home?
Always got to be careful using the transitive property because you always get the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. But this is an early game at noon Eastern. If Illinois wins this game somehow as a 2-touchdown dog and looks good doing it, then do we really start to load up on Indiana at 3:30 Eastern, getting a touchdown at Oregon? Because as I said earlier, Illinois got smacked by Indiana a couple weeks ago, and I just can't overlook that. I don't feel like they're ready for primetime players. Interesting point you bring up, though, about Ohio State's 2 big wins not looking, as tough, where they haven't played Penn State yet. But once again, the Texas win not looking as tough now. That was the first game for Sain. 2 really good defenses. By the way, I do rate Ohio State as the number 1 defense in the country right now. I rate their offense 8th. So they're actually a better defensive team than offensively. My simulation has them by 2 touchdowns, 13.8. So I think the line is spot on where it should be. But at 14 or less, if you're going to play it, I would rather lay it with Ohio State. You mentioned Julian Sain. He has only had 1 road game. They've played 4 home games and 1 road game. Now, that Washington game was an impressive win 2 weeks ago, 24-6. And the defense has been extremely strong all season long. They've held every opponent to single digits. And that's really incredible when you think about it, to hold everybody at 9 points or less. They'll be tested more here against Illinois. Total has taken some money to the under. Open 51. It's down to 49.5, 50 below that key number now. If I'm going to play it, I'm laying it at 14 or less only, but I think the line's pretty much spot on where it should be.
Okay. Ralph, what do you think? I know you follow the Buckeyes very closely.
Well, I will share one trend before I break it down. And for Ohio State, when teams are a double-digit conference home dog off a conference win, they are 49-58, 37%. That's a negative. But teams with 5 wins and no losses, with an average win of 21 points or more, when their offense is averaging under 50 points per game, and their opponent has a 70% win percentage, only 14-58. That is 19% against the spread. So one situation on each. Listen, I've watched the Buckeyes, and we're just going to continue to hear. They have not given up a red zone touchdown yet this year. They've given up 2 Chief touchdowns. You look at their halftime scores, 7-0, 35-0 against Grambling, Ohio 13-3, Washington 7-3, Minnesota 21-3. I look at Illinois, and I think they're a defense that can keep the game close. They're not a defense I trust for the entire game. So I'm going to do something funky here. You can look at, if you guys haven't checked out the gold sheet, make sure you did. Now that we're 5 or 6 games into the season, the gold sheet has first quarter and first half ATS and over-under logs for every team, including full game. How about if I pull out a under 7.5 first quarter for Illinois, Ohio State this week?
Okay.
I just think Ohio State they don't put Julian Staley back to
I
pass
agree.
often early, and
On the road, second start ever, right, Ralph? Yeah, I mean, they're not going to ask him to do something big in a hostile environment, because that's my concern with Ohio State's side in general. It's only his second road start ever for a young quarterback.
Yeah, and at Washington, he didn't do anything to late. Remember, they had to pull the back later. They scored. They were 7-3 at half. They only had 138 first half yards. And this Illinois defense, again, while not superior, I mean, they still are an upper half defense that have held at least 2 teams to a season low.
Ralph, when I do my top 25 video this afternoon, I'm giving you a shout out on that for this game. I like that, and it's something I use a lot in the Super Bowl. Of course, the Patriots were the money team with that. But teams don't want to make the first mistake early in a big game. And as I referenced earlier, that Penn State-Oregon game was 3-3 late into the first half.
Especially with especially with freshman quarterbacks on the road.
Right.
Yeah, no question.
All right. We got one more game in the rundown, and then we're going to get to our best bets. Stay tuned for those best bets, but we're going to just real quick hit on LSU, South Carolina. This is actually a game I don't have a very strong opinion on myself. South Carolina is a team that remember when they were rated number 11 in the country, and I said, that is dumb. And sure enough, it was dumb. They are not going to be back in the top 25 again. But I'm not racing to the window to lay points with LSU, Steve. This is a team who we thought they were as high as number 4 in the country. Talk about wins not aging well. They beat Clemson in the opener. Everyone thought, oh my God, what a win that well. That everyone beats Clemson now. And then they needed 5 DJ Lagway interceptions to beat Florida. Maybe that win looks, after Florida beats Texas, that looks a little bit better. But I don't know. These are 2 teams I'm not looking to bet right. I'm going to be real honest, guys. I'm throwing my hands up in the air. I don't want to play this game. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I'll real quick on this one for me is that it reminds me a little bit of Florida. Last week, everyone, nothing to do with Florida, drastically underachieved. They were a top 15 team, and then all of a sudden they beat Texas outright. You reference how far South Carolina has fallen this year, Brian. So you get a little bit of that sneaky feeling in this game as well. With that said, though, my 10,000 game simulation has LSU by 17 in this one, which is double the point spread. So I still think 9.5 or less, 8.5, the current line. There is some value with LSU.
Ralph?
Well, I look at this LSU offense. 365 yards at home against La Tech. 316 yards at home against Florida. 254 yards against Mississippi. Yeah, they had a stat pattern against Southeast Louisiana where they had 56 points and 530, making their season-to-date stats add up. There's no way I can bet LSU with that offense in this line. This isn't your father's offense. In fact, they're 92 in offense relative to their opponents' averages. Last week we did talk about, and I did say this, though, I make LSU Death Valley at night and Penn State Whiteout the 2 highest home field edges. LSU in home day games, they've only had 7 the last couple of years. They've gone 4-3 against the spread. At night at home, they're 16-9-1, 64% against the spread. But if you exclude games as a favorite of 33 or more against FCS teams and weak opponents, it actually goes to 13-3, 81%. But this one surprised me. At home at night off a loss, they're only 3-6-1 against the spread, excluding a couple games as a 40-point favorite. So you would think if you have this strong home court and you're coming off a loss, home field, and you're coming off a loss, it would be a better record. It hasn't. I'm going to just play under. I am not actually going to play under. I'm just going to give a suggestion on under. South Carolina, as slow as it gets. They're number 133 in plays per game. They're averaging only 57.6 plays per game. And if I like this kind of under against this kind of team and this kind of line in a nighttime setting, I would clearly lean first half under much more than full game, because we don't know what Lenore Sellers is going to do. He got banged up a couple games. He's only had 4 touchdown passes. So for him to be on the road is a little shaky for me. Full game, first half under for me.
All right. And this is a 7:45 Eastern kickoff down in Baton Rouge. So that gives Brian Kelly plenty of time to practice that phony Cajun accent he likes to use sometimes for recruiting. All right, the show has now reached the point where we're going to go over some best bets. If we have some time, we're going to try to nail some of the rest of the games we haven't talked to in the comment section, but we do have best bets to get to. I did see a kind remark there that I would like to acknowledge real quick here. There it is. Brian, maybe some money last week. Thank you, Swizz. I appreciate that. Hopefully this play can make you all some money. It is my best bet here for the show. We're going to take a look at Arizona and BYU. I like Arizona plus 1.5. Sure, BYU is ranked and undefeated, but who have they played? Portland State, Stanford, East Carolina, Colorado, and West Virginia. Clients of mine will recall we faded the Cougars 2 weeks ago at Colorado. That ended up being a winning bet, even though BYU did come back and win the game straight up, but only by 3 as a touchdown favorite. Colorado got a nice early lead. That was a wire-to-wire cover. This is going to be BYU's third road game in 4 weeks. Always a tough spot. On top of that, they've got the Holy War against Utah on deck. You know the players, they're going to say they're not looking ahead to it. Some of them are. So I think it's a good time to call for the Cougars to suffer their first loss. I know 2 weeks ago we lost with this Arizona team at Iowa State. But the Wildcats at home, 4-0 straight up and against the number. This game is being played in Tucson. If you caught the Blitz last week, I said Arizona would wax Oklahoma State. They did. 41-13 is a 3-touchdown favorite. Yes, everyone is jumping off the Oklahoma State ship in the wake of Mike Gundy's firing. But still, when you take care of business as a 3-touchdown favorite, it is worth noting. And talk about taking care of business. As a home underdog, guys, last 5 times Arizona's been a home dog, 4-1 against the number. And we got to talk about their defense. They have held 3 of their 4 FBS opponents to season lows in total yardage. Not only that, but the secondary, 7 interceptions, 0 touchdown passes allowed. Give me Arizona plus 1.5 is my best bet for all my top plays this weekend. Go over to wt.buzz/BP. Currently have 5 plays posted for Saturday. Steve, you're up next.
Yeah, I got to talk about a game which is one of the better games this weekend, I think, and also it's going to be a little bit of a bonus game in my top 25 video because it's one team that's just a bit outside of the rankings. What I do, by the way, in my top 25 video this week is I look at 7 games. There are 3 head-to-head top 25 matchups, and then I always dig deeper and give you some of those bonus games. There's actually 4 more games in the top 40, and this is one of them. USC, Michigan. Michigan ranked 15th, yet they're a dog in this game. It always catches my eye when we get an unranked favorite in college football. And if USC wins this game, as I think they will, they'll be ranked next week. They're currently 6th in the additional votes, which puts them in at 31st. And they're a 2.5-point favorite. I really like this line right now because my 10,000 game simulation favors USC by 6 points on average. So at minus 2.5 or less, we're getting that key number of 3 working in our favor. Yes, Michigan's played a tougher schedule, but USC right now still ranks as the number 1 offensive team in the country in my ratings. They're averaging 59 points at home this year, like 48.5 overall in all games. Live offense, I just don't know if Michigan can keep up in this one. Lay it if you're going to play it with USC and take that nice number now. Don't wait for it possibly to hit 3. Take the minus 2.5 with the Trojans, as this is a late game, Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern on NBC National TV. And don't forget, right now on my page, SteveMerrillWagerTalk.com, I have a bonus-free NFL play for this Sunday. It's free, don't cost nothing. And if you want my personal best bets, 7 days for $77. Buy 3 months, get the 4th month free, or the best deal, if you're ready to take a serious, consistent investment approach, is get the rest of 2025 for free, the next 2.5 months free when you sign up for 2026. Full details, no promo codes needed, SteveMerrillWagerTalk.com, and get there quicker with shortcut wt.buzz/SM.
All right, there you have it. Likes USC minus 2.5 against Michigan. Ralph, you're rounding us out today. Please, it is your time for your best bets and to let us know what we got going on. You got going on at your page as well this week.
Remember, guys, the exclusive 25 Blitz code valid only for Steve, Brian, myself, or Ross Benjamin, who will be back next week, and he'll be doing many more videos as well. So glad you're getting better, Ross, and we're looking forward to having you back. Weekend Warrior, $49. I will have a 5% play in the NFL. I am going to Old Dominion, Brian, and while I know it's very popular to say the AAC is going to get the extra playoff, Old Dominion to me is a legitimate shot to get to the playoff. Their one loss is to Indiana on the road, and they lost by 13 in a season opener. I think that can go away if they do run the table. They have Marshall this week and then James Madison next week in App State, and then they'll be a favorite the rest of the way. But this Old Dominion team is dominating on offense and on defense. They've played a tougher schedule than Marshall by 26 spots. Yards per play, they're number 3 in the country, yards per play diff. Marshall, 103. 100 spots better with playing a tougher schedule. You look at Marshall, they were in a 54-51 bar burner. Their D-line got 8 up, 46 carries for 264 yards. They had 28 pass plays, so they were on the field for 74 plays, allowing 29 first downs. There's 136 teams in FBS. Their defense is number 131, allowing their opponents 106 yards per game more than they average on the season. Old Dominion's offense, number 5. Their defense, number 38. They're averaging 258 yards per game and 6.1 yards per carry rushing. When you have a defense that is solid, allowing 3.9 yards per carry, an offense that can run for 6.9 yards per carry, and when you look at Colton Joseph's numbers and you say 65% pretty good, a 12-4 ratio pretty good, you've got to remember this. He had a horrible game against Indiana in the opener. He threw 3 interceptions and no touchdowns. So while he's got a 12-4 ratio, he has a 12-1 ratio versus non-top 10 AP teams. Old Dominion runs this game and perhaps runs the table.
Ralph Michael saying, don't forget about ODU, the Monarchs. We have Adam is an ODU graduate, as a matter of fact. Says, too bad can't bet him here legally. Here, there's your, let me get that off the screen here real quick so you can take a look at our best bets. Steve likes USC minus 2.5 against Michigan. Ralph, as you just heard, likes ODU minus 14.5 against Marshall. Bryan Power, like Arizona plus 1.5 against BYU. You want to bundle them all together? Final price plus 602. That would do it. Nice. All right. Yes. But Steve, I know that's down in your neck of the woods there. You, of course, a graduate of a fellow colonial school there, William and Mary. Awesome tailgate, I'm being told here by Adam at Old Dominion.
Yeah, the Old Dominion James Madison game is going to be the biggest game in the conference this year. 2 former FCS teams in the Colonial, which should make things a lot easier for William and Mary to win nowadays. But unfortunately, they've been very mediocre this season. But yeah, it's good to see the local teams doing well. And we talked about Indiana. Don't forget, Signetti came from James Madison 2 years ago, where he had a monster season as well when they went 1A. So
he really didn't come from James Madison, Steve. He just brought the entire James Madison team.
Yeah, that is very true. And they make the playoffs with it in his first season last year. So, yeah, I know Ralph uses it. I know you do, Brian. Don't underestimate coaches when you're handicapping college football and college basketball. It's a very important element.
Absolutely. We did talk about Colorado, Iowa State earlier. If you want to go back, check the replay, you could hear our thoughts on that. We are out of time. I did see there was a question about Arizona State and Utah. That is another matchup of an unranked team favored over against top 25 opponent. I'll say this to whoever asked the question. Utah is if you want to do this, I think Utah is a good money line parlay piece this week. If you could pair it with another similarly priced favorite, I think Utah is going to win that game. I don't see Kyle Whittingham losing 2 big games in the same season at Rice Eccles. So that is my take on Utah, Arizona State. That will do it for this week's edition of The Blitz. Thank you to Ralph. Thank you to Steve for all the incredible information they shared. Do not forget about coupon code 25BLITZ to save on any college football or NFL or combo season-long package. There you see that coupon code right there on your screen. We will be back next week, of course, live 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, let's cash some tickets.
Sexy devil.